I still remember the second my daughter stopped smiling. She didn't scream or cry. She looked at me and whispered, "Mom, did we do something wrong?" That question hurt more than any insult, because an adult decided my children weren't important enough to belong. A few hours later, my husband stood up in front of my family. He didn't argue. He didn't explain. He pulled out his phone. What he said next didn't just end a birthday party. It quietly destroyed a deal, a reputation, and a lie my family protected for years. But none of them understood what they had just triggered that day. My name is Allison. I'm in my early 30s, married with 2 kids, who still believe the world is mostly fair if you explain it carefully enough. I work in management, long hours, steady pressure. The kind of job where you're always solving problems for other people. At home, though, I try to keep things simple. Dinner at the table. Homework spread across the counter. A house that feels safe even when life outside isn't. That Tuesday evening, I was in the kitchen stirring a pot of pasta sauce, the smell of garlic filling the room. My daughter was coloring at the table. My son was lining up toy cars by color, completely focused. David wasn't home yet. He usually worked late, but he always made it home in time to tuck the kids in. That's when my phone rang. Sarah. My older sister had a way of calling like she already assumed the answer would be yes. Bright voice, fast pace, like she was doing you a favor by including you at all. "Emily's turning 8 next month," she said. "We're doing a big party, that new venue downtown. You know, the one everyone's talking about." I smiled automatically. "That sounds great. The kids will love it." There was a pause. Not long, just long enough. "Well, actually," she said, "we're keeping it smaller, just close family and Emily's school friends." I turned the stove down. "Okay, what does that mean?" "It means you and David are invited, obviously. But we're not really doing the cousin thing this year." The words landed wrong, heavy, slippery. "My kids?" I asked. She sighed like I was making this complicated. "Emily wants it to feel more grown up. Fewer little kids running around. It's her birthday." My daughter looked up from the table, smiling at me, holding up her drawing. I swallowed. "They're her cousins," I said quietly. "They adore her. And I adore you," Sarah replied, her tone practiced. "But this is what we decided. I told her calmly that if my kids weren't invited, David and I wouldn't be coming either. She laughed it off, warned me Mom wouldn't be happy, and hung up before I could say anything else. That night, after the kids were asleep, I told David everything. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he nodded once. "Then we're not going," he said. At the time, I thought that was the end of it. I didn't know it was just the beginning. The fallout didn't come all at once. It seeped in through small things. A group message lighting up my phone while I was at work. Photos of balloon colors. A discussion about catering options. Everyone talking like nothing had happened. I didn't respond. 2 days later, my mother called. She always did when silence made her uncomfortable. "Sarah said you're not coming to Emily's party," she said, her voice already halfway to disappointment. "What's going on?" I explained it slowly, carefully. The way you do when you're hoping someone will hear the part that matters. There was a pause, then the familiar answer. "It's Sarah's choice. It's her daughter's birthday. You can't expect her to invite everyone." "I'm not expecting anything," I said. "I'm choosing not to attend something where my children are deliberately excluded." "You're making this bigger than it needs to be," she replied. "Just come. The kids won't even notice." "They will," I said. "They'll notice when every other grandchild is there except them." She sighed. "You're being stubborn. I'm being their mother." We ended the call without resolving anything. After that, the pressure started coming from everywhere. My brother texted asking if there was drama. I gave him the short version. He said he understood, but he was still bringing his kids because he didn't want to rock the boat. A few aunts chimed in with comments about family unity and not letting small things ruin relationships. Small things. I kept replaying Sarah's voice in my head, calm, certain, like she hadn't said anything cruel at all. David noticed the shift before I said anything else. He started coming home earlier, watching more, asking fewer questions. That's how he was when something felt off. Quiet but alert. The week before the party, my mother called again. This time she tried a softer approach. "Emily would be so sad if you weren't there," she said. People will ask questions. They can, I replied. I'm not explaining why my kids weren't invited. Well, maybe you should, she said. So people don't get the wrong idea. I almost laughed. The wrong idea about what? That I was difficult, that I couldn't take a hint, that I didn't know my place. The day before the party, Sarah sent one last message in the family chat, a cheerful reminder about the time, the dress code, the parking situation. A smiling emoji at the end like that smoothed everything over. I put my phone down and looked at my kids playing on the floor. My daughter was teaching her brother a game she'd invented. He kept messing it up, and she kept patiently correcting him, never raising her voice. They had no idea what was happening around them. And that was the part that made my chest tighten. That night, David asked, "Are you okay?" "I am," I said after a moment. "But tomorrow might not be." He nodded. "Then we'll handle tomorrow when it comes." I believed him, but I still didn't know how hard tomorrow would hit or how quickly everything would change once my children learned the truth. The morning of the party arrived bright and clear, the kind of day that feels unfair when you're carrying something heavy. David suggested we take the kids somewhere fun, somewhere loud and distracting. We chose the aquarium in the city, their favorite place where everything glows blue and nothing feels urgent. At first it worked. My son pressed his face to the glass, watching a stingray drift by like a living shadow. My daughter laughed when the penguins dove her ponytail, bouncing with every step. I told myself we had made the right call, that we had protected them. Then my daughter tugged on my sleeve. "Mom," she said softly, "is Emily's birthday today?" The question landed like a dropped plate, sharp, sudden. David's hand tightened around our son's shoulder. "How do you know that, sweetheart?" I asked. "Grandma told me," she said. "She asked what dress I was wearing to the party." Of course she did. I knelt down so we were eye level. The hum of the tanks filled the space between us. "We're not going to that party," I said carefully. Her smile faded. Why not I searched for words that wouldn't break her, words that wouldn't teach her the wrong lesson. Sometimes I said parties are just for certain people. She blinked. "But I'm her cousin." "I know," I said, my throat tightening. Her eyes filled fast and silent. "Does Aunt Sarah not like us?" My son started crying before I could answer. Big hiccuping sobs that echoed off the glass. David picked him up immediately, pressing his forehead to his hair. "We're going home," he said quietly. The drive back was silent except for sniffles in the back seat. I kept my eyes on the road because if I looked at the mirror, I knew I'd lose it. When we got home, I put on a movie and handed out snacks like bandages. The kids curled up together, already drifting back toward normal. Kids are resilient like that. I wasn't. David disappeared into his office. I could hear the low murmur of his voice through the door. Not angry, controlled. That scared me more. An hour later, my phone buzzed, then buzzed again. Messages stacking up. Missed calls. My mother, my brother, Sarah. I walked into the office. David looked up at me, his expression calm but resolved. The kind of calm that comes after a decision has already been made. "They made our children cry," he said. "That's not something I'm willing to overlook." That was the moment I understood something clearly for the first time. Staying quiet hadn't protected anyone. It had only delayed the consequences, and whatever was about to happen next, it wasn't going to be gentle. I didn't ask David what he meant at first. I could tell by the way he was sitting, shoulders squared, phone face down on the desk, that whatever decision he had made was already in motion. He wasn't pacing. He wasn't venting. He was calm in a way that only happens after someone crosses a line you never meant to forgive. "What did you do?" I asked quietly. He turned the screen toward me. I didn't recognize the details at first. Just a chain of emails, short, professional, carefully worded, subject lines about meetings, timelines, approvals, the kind of messages most people skim without thinking twice. "Sarah's husband has been trying to lock down a major contract," David said. "It's been dragging on for months." I knew that much. Sarah had mentioned it more than once, always framing it as the thing that would finally put their family on stable ground. Bigger house, better schools, less stress. It was the reason she'd been tense lately, the reason everything felt like it mattered just a little too much. What does that have to do with us? I asked. David looked at me steadily. I'm the one who decides whether that contract moves forward. The room felt suddenly smaller. I didn't know that, I said. You weren't supposed to, he replied. Most people don't connect the dots. Different structures, different names. I like it that way. I stared at the screen again this time, understanding what I was looking at. A decision. Already sent. Already final. You ended it, I said. Yes. My first instinct wasn't relief. It was fear. David, I said slowly, you didn't just do this because of a party, right? He shook his head. No, I did it because someone decided our children were disposable, and then everyone else told us to swallow it. My phone buzzed again. Then again. I didn't even have to look to know who it was. Sarah, my mother, my brother. I finally picked up one call. Sarah's voice came through sharp and panicked, stripped of the practiced calm she usually wore. What is going on? She demanded. Mark just got a call saying the deal is dead. Dead. Do you have any idea what you've done? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't apologize. I know exactly what happened, I said. David made a business decision. This is insane, she snapped. Over a birthday party? No, I replied. Over how you treated my kids, she scoffed. You're seriously going to destroy our finances because Emily didn't want little kids running around. They're not little kids, I said. They're your niece and nephew. That's not the point, she shot back. You know how competitive things are. That contract was everything for us. And my children weren't, I said. Silence crackled on the line. Then my mother cut in, her voice trembling with anger. You've gone too far. This is punishment, Allison. This is revenge. No, I said. This is consequence. You could have talked to us, she insisted. You could have worked this out. We tried, I said. You told me the kids wouldn't notice. They noticed. David reached for my hand, grounding me. Sarah's voice softened just slightly. You planned this, she said. You knew he could do this. I didn't, I replied honestly. But even if I had, it wouldn't change what you did. You're being cruel, she said. You're ruining our future. I took a breath. You hurt my children. Tell me which one of us decided that was acceptable. She hung up. The rest of the afternoon blurred into noise, messages flying in from relatives who suddenly cared very deeply about family unity, calls I didn't answer, opinions I didn't ask for. Everyone had a take once money entered the picture. David ignored it all. He closed his laptop, stood up, and walked into the living room where our kids were sprawled on the floor with blankets and popcorn. He sat down with them like nothing else existed. That night, Sarah showed up at our door, alone. She looked smaller than I remembered, tired. Her eyes flicked around the house as if she was seeing it for the first time. The kids' drawings taped to the fridge, the scuffed coffee table, the life we'd built without needing approval. Can we talk? She asked. We sat in the living room, the same room where my kids had cried hours earlier. She twisted her hands together, avoiding my eyes. I didn't realize it would go this far, she said. Then you didn't think very hard, I replied. She flinched but didn't argue. I told myself it was just one party, she admitted, that they wouldn't even know. They knew, I said. They asked why you didn't like them. Her face crumpled. That's not true. I do like them. Then why did you exclude them? She was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was raw. Because I was jealous. I didn't interrupt. Your kids are sweet, she continued. Everyone says it. Mine's been struggling lately. Tantrums, acting out. I felt like everything was a comparison and I was losing. I wanted one day where I didn't have to feel that. So you made my kids pay for it, I said. She nodded, tears spilling over. I didn't think it through. I didn't think about how they'd feel. I was wrong. It wasn't an excuse, but it was the truth. You need to apologize to them, I said, not to me. To them. I will, she whispered, if you'll let me. That's up to them, I replied. And as for the contract, that's David's decision. She nodded, already knowing the answer. David didn't change his mind. When I asked him later if he ever would, he shook his head. It's not about punishment, he said. It's about who I choose to do business with. I won't partner with people who think hurting children is negotiable. The fallout was immediate. Sarah's husband scrambled for alternatives, smaller deals, less security. They survived, just not the way they'd planned. Sarah came back a week later with Emily. She knelt in front of my kids, eyes level, and apologized. No excuses, no qualifiers. Emily handed them handmade cards inviting them to a cousin-only celebration. Cake, balloons, just family. My kids forgave her instantly, the way children do when you give them honesty. The adults weren't so quick. Family gatherings changed after that. Conversations quieter, smiles more careful. Everyone knew the rules now, even if they didn't like them. And as for me, I didn't feel victorious. I felt clear. For the first time, no one questioned whether my children mattered. That was enough. The days after everything happened were quieter than I expected. Not peaceful, just subdued. Like everyone was carefully choosing their words, aware that something permanent had shifted. Sarah kept her promise. She brought Emily over one afternoon with a small cake and a handful of balloons. No big speeches, no audience. She knelt in front of my kids and apologized directly. She told them she was wrong, that they mattered, that she should never have made them feel otherwise. My daughter listened closely, then nodded once. My son hugged Emily before anyone said another word. Children don't hold grudges when adults stop lying. The relationship between Sarah and me didn't snap back into place. It settled into something more cautious, polite, honest, a distance that wasn't punishment, just protection. She understood that now. David never reconsidered his decision. He didn't gloat. He didn't explain himself again. When family members hinted that things had gone too far, he simply said, "I stand by it." And that was the end of the conversation. My parents adjusted slowly. My father admitted he understood David's position, even if he wished the fallout hadn't been so public. My mother stopped framing it as an overreaction and started calling it what it was, a boundary. At home, life returned to its rhythm. Homework, bedtime stories, weekend pancakes. The kids stopped asking about the party. They remembered the cake they shared later, not the one they missed. But I remembered, and I carried that memory with gratitude. Because my children learned something important without ever having to hear it explained. They learned that when someone treats them as less than the people who love them, we'll stand up. What stayed with me wasn't the canceled deal or the family tension. It was the look on my kids' faces when they realized they were worth protecting. No explanations, no compromises, just love with a backbone. If you've ever had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting your children, you're not alone. Boundaries don't break families. Silence does. If this story resonated with you, share your experience in the comments and subscribe so you don't miss the next story about standing up when it matters most.